A good many of the fixes I am about to show you will not cost you one single penny. The priciest of the bunch, and you may not even need it, will run you well under $30. And the very first fix on this list is the strangest sounding of them all. A plain roll of toilet paper, sitting on a shelf, right next to your milk. Now, I know how foolish that sounds. Bathroom paper, sitting in the very box that holds your supper. But there is a real, sensible reason behind it. And before we are through today, I am going to give you the honest version, not the half of it that gets passed around online. I am Amos Miller, and I was raised in a house where nothing in the kitchen was left to chance, because before there was a machine to do the work, wasted food was wasted labor, plain and simple. My own grandfather kept an icebox that never once saw a lick of electricity, and he tended that box with more care than most folks today give the refrigerator humming away in their kitchen. I am not selling you a new refrigerator, and I am not selling you any gadget. Stay with me to the end, because there is one fix on this list that quietly costs most families more money than all the others put together, and it is not the one you would guess. Let's get into it. So here is the toilet paper trick, told to you straight. A refrigerator that is closed up tight and cold is holding on to two things you do not want in there: damp air, and every smell your food gives off, all mingling together. The onion skin, the leftover fish, the open jar of pickles, it all blends into one smell. And that smell works its way into your butter and your milk, whether you asked it to or not. Now, a roll of plain toilet paper, unrolled a turn or two, and left sitting open on a shelf, is dry, and it is absorbent, and it will genuinely soak up some of that extra dampness in the air. That much of the trick is true, and that is why it has stuck around online for years. But here is the part most of those videos leave out, because I would rather you hear it from me. Paper by itself does only a little for the smell. The thing that actually neutralizes odor, the real hero of this whole trick, is baking soda. So, do it the honest way. Shake 2 or 3 spoonfuls of plain baking soda right onto that roll of paper, working it into the top layers, and set it open on a middle shelf. Or simpler still, just keep an open box of baking soda sitting there year-round. The paper handles the damp. The soda handles the smell. Together, for maybe 50 cents, your milk tastes like milk again, and not like whatever you brought home from the market last Tuesday. Change it out every 3 or 4 weeks. Now, while we are on the subject of damp, let's talk about those 2 drawers at the bottom of your box, the crisper drawers. Because I would wager most folks have never once touched that little slider built into the front of them. That slider is a vent, and it controls how much moisture stays trapped inside that drawer. And it matters more than you would think, because different foods want different amounts of damp around them. Your greens, your lettuce, your fresh herbs, they want it damp and closed up tight, or they wilt inside of a day or 2. So slide that vent shut, and that drawer holds its moisture, and your greens stay crisp for the better part of a week instead of going limp by Wednesday. Your fruit is the opposite. Apples, pears, anything that ripens as it sits, gives off a gas as it does, and if that gas has nowhere to go, the fruit spoils faster, not slower. So slide that vent open, and let it breathe. Greens closed and damp, fruit open and vented. It costs you nothing, and it is sitting right there in your kitchen already, built into a machine most of us never learn to use right. Now, here is the second fix, and I want you to actually get up and try this one before the day is out, because it can save you real money every month, not just pennies. Run your finger around the inside edge of your refrigerator door, and you will feel a soft band of rubber. That is the gasket, and its whole job is sealing that door shut tight, so the cold stays in and the warm kitchen air stays out. When that seal weakens, 3 bad things happen at once. Your food does not stay cold enough, and it spoils sooner. Your refrigerator runs and runs, trying to catch up, and wears itself out doing it. And your power bill climbs, because that machine is working twice as hard for nothing. And the worst part is, it happens slow and quiet. Most folks never know their seal has failed until the milk has already turned. So here is the test, and it costs you nothing but 2 minutes. Take an ordinary dollar bill, open the door, and lay it across the seal, so half hangs in and half hangs out. Close the door on it, and pull. If the seal is good, you will feel it grip, a real bit of resistance. If that bill slides out easy, with no fight in it at all, your seal has failed right there, and it wants tending to. Test it at the top, the bottom, and both sides, because a seal often fails in just one stretch, while the rest still holds. Now, before you go and order a whole new gasket, there is an old fix worth trying first, because very often that seal has not worn out at all. It has only gone stiff and flattened from the door swinging open and shut 1,000 times, and it no longer springs back out to meet the frame the way it should. Rubber that has only warped can usually be coaxed back into shape with a little gentle warmth. Take a hairdryer, hold it a few inches off the seal, and pass it back and forth along that stretch for a minute or two, just enough to warm the rubber through, not scorch it. As it softens, work it with your fingers, pressing that flattened rubber back out into its proper shape. Let it cool holding that shape, and test it again with your dollar bill. More often than you would expect, that seal grips again, and it cost you nothing but a few minutes. But I want to be honest with you about the limit of this fix, because I would rather you hear it plain than waste your time. If that rubber is cracked, torn, or crumbling apart in your hand, no amount of warming brings it back. That seal is finished, and it needs replacing, which is neither a hard job nor an expensive one, usually $15 to $25 for the part. Warm a seal that has only warped. Replace one that has truly died. Here is a mistake that is not your fault, because the refrigerator itself is built to tempt you into making it. The door of your refrigerator is the warmest, most unsteady part of the whole box, because every time you open it, that door swings out into your warm kitchen air, and its shelves never get as cold as the deep inside ever does. And yet, nearly every refrigerator built has a little rack right there in the door, sized just right for eggs, and a shelf that looks made for a milk jug. That is exactly backward. Your milk and your eggs are the things you most want held cold and steady, and the door is the one place in the whole machine that cannot give you that. Take the Hostetler family, 2 farms over from ours. Mrs. Hostetler could not understand why her milk kept turning sour 3-4 days before the date stamped on the jug, gallon after gallon, week after week. Turned out she was keeping it right there in the door rack, same as most everybody does, because that is where the manufacturer built a spot for it. We moved her milk back to the middle shelf, deep in the cold, and the souring stopped complete. By her own reckoning, she had been pouring out near a gallon of milk a week for nothing, close to $13 a month, money down the drain over a habit built right into the appliance itself. Keep your milk and your eggs deep inside, on a middle shelf. Save the door for your mustard, your pickles, the jars that do not mind a little warmth. Now here is a habit that costs you nothing but a little attention, and it is the difference between food that gets used and food that gets thrown away. Most folks shop, come home with a full load, and cram the new groceries in front of whatever is already sitting in there, old and half forgotten. So the new pushes the old to the back, and the old rots out of sight until it is spoiled and has to be thrown out. Do it the other way, the way the market itself does. Before you go shopping, go through your refrigerator first. Use up or throw out what has gone past saving, wipe down the shelves, and start with a cleaner, emptier box. Then, when the new groceries come in, put them behind whatever is still good from before, so the older food is the first thing your hand reaches for. Oldest to the front, newest to the back. That one habit alone, costing you nothing but 5 minutes before you shop, will cut down a good deal of what you are currently paying to feed your garbage can. Here is one that surprises most folks, because it runs against what feels like common sense. A refrigerator needs room for the air to move around inside it, circulating around and between your food to keep everything evenly cold. Pack every shelf solid, back to front, and that air cannot move, and pockets of it sit warmer than the rest, even while the machine is running the whole time. Food spoils in those still, warm pockets, and you never know it is happening, because the dial says the box is cold, so leave gaps. Do not jam every last shelf to bursting. A refrigerator that is comfortably full, with room to breathe, cools better than one crammed tight. Now, your freezer is the exact opposite, and I want you to remember that, because it trips people up. A full freezer holds its cold better than an empty one, since all that frozen food is holding the cold itself, working alongside the machine instead of against it. So keep your freezer packed, and keep your refrigerator with a little breathing room. 2 different boxes, 2 different rules, and knowing the difference costs you nothing but remembering it. 2 more small habits, and then we will get to the fix that costs the most families the most money. On the back or underneath your refrigerator, there is a set of coils, and their whole job is shedding the heat the machine pulls out of your food. Over months and years, those coils cake up with dust and pet hair, and a coil choked with dust cannot shed heat the way it should. So the machine runs hotter, works harder, wears out sooner, and costs more to run every single month. Twice a year, pull the refrigerator out or reach underneath and brush or vacuum that dust away. It is a 5-minute job most folks never do in the whole life of the machine. And wipe up your spills the moment they happen, not a week later. That drip of milk, that leaked juice, that dab of sauce, those are exactly the things that sour and breed the very smells your baking soda then has to fight. A spill caught fresh takes 10 seconds with a cloth. A spill left to dry takes real scrubbing a month on. Keep a cloth handy and catch them while they are still wet. Now, here is the fix that quietly costs most families more money than everything else on this list combined, and almost nobody ever checks it. Most refrigerators have a dial or a setting inside, and folks either never touch it from the day it was installed, or they crank it as cold as it will go, thinking colder always means safer. Neither one is right. Too warm, and your food spoils before its time, plain and dangerous. But too cold, down near freezing, and you are wasting real power for nothing, and ruining things that were never meant to freeze. Your lettuce turns to mush. Your eggs crack in the carton. Your milk gets a skin of ice in it. Now, some of you are thinking, my refrigerator has always run this way. It has never given me trouble. Why fix what is not broken? Fair question. But a machine drifts off its setting as it ages, same as anything mechanical does, and you never know it has drifted until your food starts telling you, and by then you have already paid for it, over and over, one spoiled bag of lettuce at a time. A cheap thermometer, the kind you can find for $2 or $3, set on a middle shelf, will tell you plainly what your box is actually holding, not what the dial claims. Set it just above freezing, cold enough to keep food safe. Not so cold it wastes your power or ruins what you paid for. Now, I promised you earlier I would tell you where I first learned to pay this kind of attention to a cold box, and it was not from any refrigerator at all. My grandfather kept an ice house out behind the barn, packed each winter with blocks of ice cut from the pond and buried deep in sawdust to hold through the summer. And built onto the side of the spring house was an old wooden ice box, lined in zinc, with a felt strip nailed around the door to seal it. I could not have been more than 7 or 8 years old, and it was my job every few mornings to check that felt strip with a penny, the same way I just showed you with a dollar bill. Slide the penny in, close the door, and pull. If it held, the ice would keep. If it slid free, my grandfather said the cold was leaking out, same as water, through a cracked bucket, and we would lose a block of ice a week early for it. He never had a dial, and he never had a thermometer built in. He had his hand, his nose, and a penny, and he tended that box with more care than most of us give the humming refrigerator in our own kitchen today. I think about that a good deal, how a family with no electricity at all kept their food safer than plenty of folks manage now, simply because somebody was paying attention. That is really all any of this is. Not a bag of tricks. Just paying the same old attention to the machine you already own. Now, who benefits from you never learning any of this? And I will say it careful, because I'm not telling you there is some scheme sitting in a boardroom somewhere. It is quieter than that. A refrigerator with a failing seal nobody tests, coils nobody cleans, and milk stored wrong and souring early is a refrigerator that runs up your power bill, wears out sooner, and sends food to the garbage more often than it should. There is money in all of that, in the power sold, and the machine replaced, and the groceries bought twice over. There is none at all in teaching you to test a seal with a dollar bill. So the plain knowing of how to tend a refrigerator just quietly stopped getting passed down. Not hidden from you, just no longer worth anybody's while to tell you. So here is the whole of it, plain and short. Paper and baking soda together for the damp and the smell. Greens closed, fruit open, in your crisper drawers. Test your door seal with a dollar bill, and warm a warped one before you replace a cracked one. Milk and eggs deep inside, never in the door. Clean out before you shop, and rotate your oldest food to the front. Give the air room to move, and keep the freezer packed instead. Clean your coils twice a year, and set your temperature just above freezing with a cheap thermometer to prove it. A refrigerator that finally works the way it was built to, for less than the cost of a single trip to the store. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.